There's someone here.
Where?
I don't know. Keep your eye open.
Logan. Damn it.
Victor, take one, A mark.
B mark. Wait! I am completely in the wrong movie. I am so sorry.
Welcome back, everyone. Happy New Year. This will be my video for the Wolverine Spider-Man X-Men crossover scene that you probably heard about in the past. Maybe you've seen it before, but there's been a lot of talk about them crossing over in Secret Wars and them paying off this deleted scene from way back in the first X-Men movie. That's kind of been Kevin Feige's thing, is paying things off. And the funny thing is that this deleted scene took place at a final battle at the Statue of Liberty, and they kind of had a big crossover scene with the multiverse in Spider-Man No Way Home at the Statue of Liberty. This scene also goes back to the origin of Kevin Feige at Marvel Studios way back in the 90s. So if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up. Next week, we're also getting a brand new Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania trailer video. We're supposed to be seeing the first version of MODOK in the MCU during that as well too. Of course, I will do videos for everything. But the deleted scene here of Spider-Man with Wolverine and the X-Men was featured as a secret bonus clip on the original X-Men movie box DVD sets. The funny thing is that Fox didn't put this deleted scene on the normal home video releases because they didn't want to get sued out of existence by Sony because of the circumstances for how they used Spider-Man in that original X-Men movie. It was kind of like a double secret probation deleted scene, and they thought that enough time had gone by when they released it finally, like many years later after the movie had come out, that they hoped that Sony's lawyers wouldn't care about it at that point. And talk about multiverse, because right after this, they did work out some of the rights issues between Fox and Sony, and they were going to have Hugh Jackman have a cameo walk-on role in the Spider-Man 2002 Tobey Maguire movie. That time it was going to be more legit. Hugh Jackman even said that Kevin Feige had to remind him of it years later. The reason why it didn't happen, though, is because they actually had a practical issue with the Wolverine costume at the time, and it wasn't ready in time for them to film the scene that they were going to film with him in the Spider-Man movie. Sort of you can see the wheels spinning in the back of Kevin Feige's mind, like we have to cross all these characters over.
Can this happen? And he goes, look, it's not going to be easy because you're working with different studios and they have their properties. But I believe, maybe I'm optimistic. I understand at Marvel they've got Avengers, they've got a lot of big things going on, but at some point I just find it almost impossible to believe there's not a way to bring Iron Man, all the Avengers characters, you know, Wolverine, the X-Men characters, Spider-Man, and somehow get them in together. But I'm in for it. I'm totally up for it because I think that would be really exciting for fans across the board.
But during the original X-Men 2000 movie, during the final battle, when Wolverine and the X-Men come to the Statue of Liberty to save Rogue, stop Magneto from trying to activate the X genes of everyone on the planet, turning them all into mutants too, they face Magneto's Brotherhood of Mutants, Toad, Sabretooth, Mystique. Mystique uses her ability to disguise herself as a couple different characters. The one that wound up in the actual movie was her pretending to be a version of Wolverine to confuse them. But during this extended version of the fight scene, this deleted scene, a version of Spider-Man just drops in casually. If you couldn't hear his dialogue very clearly, he runs in behind them and yells, "Wait!" and then seemingly realizes he's on the wrong movie set, apologizing to everyone as he slowly backs away. Wolverine, the rest of the X-Men all break character briefly. There were a couple reasons why Spider-Man wound up in this film. Like, yes, they wanted to have a big crossover with all the Marvel characters, but the rights at that point, like we're talking about the early 2000s here, late 90s when they were filming this, the rights were a mess at that point. It also kind of started out just as a gag, like a joke, because there was so much money and so much time being spent on this new X-Men movie. It was basically meant to be the rebirth of comic book movies in the wake of Batman Returns, because everybody remembered what a big flop that had been. It'd been super campy. People didn't take comic book movies seriously anymore. One of the few exceptions to that was the Blade movie, also in the late 90s, but you have to remember that studios, because of things like Batman Returns, were so afraid of people not taking this new X-Men movie seriously that Bryan Singer, the Fox people, wanted to treat it super seriously. Kevin Feige even joked that on the set, Bryan Singer had banned the actors from reading comic books because he didn't want it to feel like a comic book movie. That's why all their costumes were the black leather ones instead of the classic, more colorful costumes. There was even a joke about that during the movie about the quote-unquote yellow spandex, like the classic Wolverine suit.
You actually go outside in these things?
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex
Oh, how time has changed things. Now all we want is to see Wolverine in that classic yellow costume during Deadpool 3. And you have to remember that while they were filming this scene here with Spider-Man in the original X-Men movie, this was 1999 when they were filming it. Sony was still getting ready to hire Sam Raimi, like they hadn't hired him yet. They were still working on the script for Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man movie, and they had not yet hired Tobey Maguire. So even though Sony knew that it was going to try and make a Spider-Man movie, they didn't know exactly what it was going to look like. They didn't know who the actor was going to be, which is why in this scene here, Spider-Man's costume doesn't look anything like Tobey Maguire's suit. He wasn't cast till the year after this scene was filmed in 2000. They probably had some concept art for Tobey Maguire's version at this point, but it was still them trying to figure out what that movie was going to look like. So the Spider-Man 2002 movie didn't really exist yet. The actor playing Spider-Man in this scene is named Scott Leba, who had originally been one of the contenders to play Spider-Man when they had tried to make a Spider-Man movie way back in the 1980s when Canon Films held the rights. They were the same people that made the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, so this would have been them making their version of a Spider-Man movie right after Superman 4 had come out in theaters. Eventually, the rights passed to Columbia Pictures, which is how James Cameron got on the project. You have a whole different history with James Cameron's version of the Spider-Man movie that he tried to make in the 90s before Titanic. This is some concept art for what his version of Spider-Man would have looked like. It would have been Leonardo DiCaprio, as you'd expect, because he would have been the perfect age to play a teenage Spider-Man during the 90s. But the funny thing is that on that original X-Men movie, Kevin Feige got his start as sort of like the baby version of Kevin Feige at Marvel Studios. If you don't remember, Kevin Feige originally started out as the assistant to Lauren Shula Donner and Richard Donner, who made the original Superman movie. By the time they gotten ready to make Bryan Singer's X-Men 2000 movie, he'd become her assistant producer, and he became like the studio's man on set, just watching things, making sure the trains moved on time. He said that at the time, he was like the low man on the totem pole. He had absolutely no power. He couldn't tell anybody what he thought that they should be doing on the movie, like how they should make it. That was still a long ways off. Hugh Jackman told jokes about how Kevin Feige snuck him Wolverine comic books on set to help him inform his character, because remember, Bryan Singer had banned comic books on the set of the movie. He continued working on the X-Men movies. He also served as an assistant producer on the Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi. He became the CEO of Marvel Studios, as you know today, in 2003 while they were working on Spider-Man 2. And just like there were a bunch of rights issues with Spider-Man showing up in this original X-Men movie, Kevin Feige had the exact same problem when he went on to make the first Iron Man movie. There was a really famous deleted scene of Nick Fury in that post-credit scene from the first Iron Man film where he shouts out mutants, X-Men, Spider-Man, all these characters that he wanted to cross over in the upcoming Marvel movies they were planning on making.
As if gamma accidents, radioactive bug bites, and assorted mutants weren't enough. I have to deal with a spoiled brat who doesn't play well with others and wants to keep all his toys to himself.
So the funny thing about that is that in that version of his plan initially, like you can see, he wanted to have versions of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man cross over into the MCU. He wanted versions of the X-Men characters to cross over. He also wanted to have a version of Wolverine cross over in the first Captain America movie because the whole idea is that Logan is so long-lived. He was around during World War II as a regular soldier before he became the Wolverine character. Hugh Jackman would have shown up in this scene here where Captain America shows up to save all the POWs in the Howling Commandos. He would have just been one of the random prisoners that was being held captive here. But at the time they were getting ready to film that scene in the first Captain America movie, they were getting ready to make the Wolverine Origins movie. The Wolverine character had become so popular at Fox and so valuable to them, they were like, absolutely not. You cannot borrow any of our characters. Oh, how times have changed now. We're finally getting Hugh Jackman crossing over into the MCU through Deadpool 3. And a lot of the reason why people are talking about Wolverine, Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire crossing over together on screen is because they're actually going to do a version of that during Avengers Secret Wars, pay off all these big crossover scenes like the Iron Man 1 post-credit scene, the original X-Men 2000 crossover scene, when Hugh Jackman meets a version of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and they fight Kang together. The other big rumor you may have heard too is that during Secret Wars, the version of Kang that they wind up fighting will actually be the Beyonder, and they'll use more Easter eggs from the original 1980s Secret Wars because it was the Beyonder pulling them all to a version of Battleworld, and the plot was very different from the more modern version of Secret Wars. And that Beyonder will just be another Kang variant, not the Kang the Conqueror variant that we see in Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania. I believe he's going to be the version that we see in Avengers 5 Kang Dynasty, and then when we get to Secret Wars, that's when it's the Beyonder variant of Kang. If we hear about them paying off any more long-running deleted scenes or really cool deleted ideas that they had during these original movies, of course I'll include them in videos, but that's kind of the thing that they're doing during Secret Wars, is they had all these cool ideas back during the early 2000s, even back as early as the 1980s, that they just weren't able to do for copyright reasons, or there were production issues, they just didn't have the technology at the time. Now they can do crazy versions of all that stuff. Everyone click here for my Deadpool 3 Wolverine trailer video, and click here to learn about Ben Affleck coming back to the Marvel movies. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and Happy New Year.